Be Monday. Let's find our way to a nice, comfy seat. Something where you can make sure that your spine feels really supported. And we'll just settle in from there. Taking a moment to feel into kind of the physical nest that you're settling into, maybe allowing the eyes to close. As the eyes close, tuning into how the spine is settling, responding, and aligning, and then just smoothing out your breath. So there's this ship full of sailors that has been getting tossed around by the seas for some time. Their ship is damaged, and so they have very little control of where they're traveling. And yet, on the distant horizon, directly in front of them, they believe they see an island. Conversation ensues on whether this island is a mirage or a real tangible thing. Think about how you can regulate, shift, and change, and adjust your breath to be most impactful. Let's give ourselves about 60 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll allow the eyes to open if they're closed. Let's turn our palms face down if they're not already, and then start to sync some movement and breath. So, with an inhale, we're going to lift our arms up and overhead. As we do this, we want the entirety of the inhale to mirror the entirety of the lift, and then we'll exhale, and we'll let that entirety of our exhale breath mirror the release of our arms. And let's just do that a couple more times, just inhaling up. And exhaling back down. Last time here. Let's transition to hands and knees tabletop. So a little bit of shoulder mobility there. Kick things off. As we land in our tabletop, splay your fingers out wide. Get that big, full expression of the fingertip energy. And then see if you can lift the heels of the hands so that we can come up and have some space underneath the heels of the hands. See if as you do that, if you can take some engagement and really feel the finger mound and fingertips, and then slowly release the heels of the hands back down. As the heels of the hands connect, don't lose that engagement in the finger mounds and fingertips. Curl your toes underneath you. And we're going to take like a 10% lift into down dog. So just think about rolling back and up, but just activating that space. And feel where the pressure of the shape is sitting, the quads and the hips and the hands, and release back down to tabletop, flip the tops of the feet, and glide back into child's pose. Let the back musculature relax as you land in child's pose. Think about the quads and the hips, all that engagement that we had when we just started getting into down dog, and try to let it relax. And then when it feels appropriate, fingertips gripping into the mat in front of us, we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. Curl your toes and lift all the way back into down dog. Get that full expression of your down dog shape. Think about the length of your spinal column. Back down to hands and knees tabletop. As you come back down to hands and knees tabletop, we're going to lift the heels of the hands again. So we're getting that energy into the finger mounds and fingertips. And think about really how the index fingers are engaged here. Really think about index finger engagement. Your choice. You can keep the heels of the hand lifted, or you can slowly bring them back down. We're going to roll back into down dog. And we'll slowly walk ourselves forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Get that big, flat, neutral expansion of the spine, and then exhale back into fold. As you fold, drop your head, release your neck, melt into that spinal column space. Drift the awareness back to the sacrum, and let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Slowly unwinding, unpacking the spine. Oh, and finding mountain, bringing your hands together at heart center. As the hands settle at heart center, think about both the anterior posterior weight distribution balance and the lateral weight distribution balance. Really think about finding this midline of stability, and then extend your arms out in front of you and pull the hands back like you're creating plank, right? So mountain and plank, exact same shape. We just one time are horizontal, one time we're vertical. Feel how much engagement it takes in the forearms to just get our hands into position here. And then release the hands to heart center. And as that forearm musculature relaxes, use that to space out the shoulder capsules. Feel that whole shoulder girdle release. And then let's keep that awareness on our anterior posterior balance in particular, and we're going to sink back into chair. So we want nice vertical tibia fibia. We're driving back into that depth. And then extend your arms out in front of you in that plank shape once again. And feel how the forearms, while they're still working, have a little bit more room. Release to fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands and we'll walk our way out into plank. As you get into plank, recapture that same stability, that same engagement, and that same lateral and posterior anterior stability and weight distribution balance, right? It's here, we're more about the engagement. Feel the obliques engage, feel the core engage, feel the glutes engage, and then just slowly lower yourself down to your belly. Keep those elbows nice and tight to the body. Flex the quads so the kneecaps lift, and let's just take a little baby cobra. As you get into your baby cobra, think about the subscapula musculature and how it's engaging to provide strength across the anterior shoulder girdle. So That musculature underneath the scapula retracting back and holding this space, allowing you to get either that head lift, maybe it's a millimeter, maybe it's a centimeter, maybe it's a half an inch. Maybe we start to draw the shoulders broad, but feeling that upper back engagement. And then we'll relax. Slide our hands underneath our forehead for a little crocodile pose. And just breathe there, just melt there. We'll give ourselves 45 more seconds here. Just really thinking about relaxing all of the musculature that we've activated thus far. Last 15 seconds here. Really want the blood flow to normalize, our rate of respiration to normalize. And then when it feels appropriate for you, we're going to slide our hands back underneath our shoulders. The hands come underneath the shoulders, squeeze the quads again, and think about developing core strength and feeling that upper back engagement. Then press yourself right up to tabletop and adjust your tabletop so that your weight distribution is equivalent between the knees and the hands. Maintain that equivalency in weight distribution, and we're going to slide our knees back maybe like six inches or so, right? Just a step back with the knee is probably a better descriptor, just depending on femur geometry, and we'll do that with the same on the second side. So now we're in what is a modified plank. Modified plank actually is much easier to hurt our lumbar in. So squeeze the glutes and squeeze the core to create that stability. And we're going to work on a little chaturanga here. So with the glutes squeezed and the core engaged, keep your elbows in and think about keeping your lower arm vertical as you slowly lower yourself down. And then we'll press ourselves right back up. Curl your toes, lift your seat and find down dog. And in your down dog, just think about elongating everything, really feeling the spine lengthen out, but also feeling this anterior shoulder girdle into pec minor, getting the capacity to lengthen. Super easy to get really short when we're working on these pressing motions. And then let's come back down to hands and knees tabletop. And we'll do the same thing. So we're going to work on our chaturanga again. The biggest thing that I'm wanting you to focus on, and Heather, I know you're great at this, but for future replays, when we're lowering ourselves down, it's, every magazine we've ever seen has someone in a push-up and their elbows are driving out. That's the worst possible situation we can have for our shoulders. So when we're lowering ourselves down here, we're really trying to keep the elbows in and just lower straight down and then push straight back up. So as you take this little chaturanga, this time we're going to try to hold our body maybe just an inch off the ground or so to get that full chaturanga space. So just lower yourself down. See if you can hold yourself here. Maybe a little lateral sway here. Keep that glute squeeze, that core squeeze, and then we'll press ourselves right back up. Curl our toes and unwind all of that strength engagement with some length into down dog. And then we'll walk ourselves forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift your awareness to your sacrum, and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into mountain, bringing our hands together, heart center. 1 Once again, think about your anterior, posterior weight distribution. Think about the toe mounds and heels, and let's sink ourselves back into chair. That tibia and fibia staying vertical as we lower ourselves back. Get the glutes engaged and pressing into that space, and then push the arms out into that push-up space, plank space, and we'll rise back up into mountain, hands coming to heart center. As you land, as the glutes and hips get into that top space, slide the right foot straight back into lunge, and then sweep your arms up into full expression of crescent. And then we'll drop the hands to heart center and return to mountain. And let's do the same thing on the second side. So left foot slides back. We sweep the arm to fully express crescent. We get that height and that lift. We stay neutral in the torso. Hands drop to heart center, and we return to the front of our mat. Inhale, sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Remember to really elongate the spine here. And then exhale back into your fold. Plant your hands. We'll walk back into down dog. Drive that length into your down dog here. Think about the adjustments, the tweaks you can make to maximize the length. And then let's come down to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, we're going to scoot the knees back once again. So we get to that depth. And then from this elongated position, again, core's engaged, glutes are engaged, we're going to slide back into child's pose. Keep the hands active and in front of you, fingertips engaged into the mat. And then we'll pull ourselves forward to this modified tabletop and lower ourselves down for that little chaturanga. Pressing back up into our modified tabletop and sinking back and into child's pose. Inhale forward to your tabletop, modified tabletop. Exhale with the glute squeeze, core engaged to that chaturanga. Inhale back up. And exhale back into child's pose. Let's do that 2 more times. So inhaling forward, exhaling down, inhaling up, and exhaling back. And 1 more time, inhaling forward, exhaling down, inhaling up, and exhaling back. And now you can settle here, release the arms, feel the body sink into that depth, and just feel child's pose. And so this ship gets closer and closer to what turns out to not be a mirage at all, but a real island. And the crew of the ship jump off. They fall down in the sand and they're kissing the ground. And they're just so grateful that they have found land after so many days adrift at sea. And it feels appropriate for you. Let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog. And from down dog, let's walk our way forward to the front of the mat. Inhaling into half lift. And exhaling back into fold. As you settle into fold, let the crown of your head release. Think about dropping into the depth of this shape. And then let's drift our awareness to our sacrum. We'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into mountain. Bring your hands together, heart center. And let's slide our left foot straight back into lunge. Create that front back balance of weight distribution. And then slide back into your right hamstring. So we bring some weight into that left heel. And then extend your arms straight out in front of you and push the palms towards the space in front of you. So fingertips straight up. And with an exhale, we're going to take the crown of the head and push it out into that space in front of us. You can keep as much engagement in that right hamstring as is possible. And then we'll come back up, ground our left heel, and roll to traditional 2. Just finding space here. A little bit of fatigue in the hamstring, very likely. Settle in without allowing that right knee to collapse in. Think about broadening out into that space. And then spin your left heel up and we'll find crescent. Drop our hands to heart center and we will step to the front of the mat. When it feels appropriate, let's take our right foot straight back. Lunge first, thinking about the stability and the weight distribution, the engagement here, and we slide back into the left hamstring. Push the arms straight out in front of us, fingertips up, and we'll drop the crown of the head into that space as you drive into that right heel. And then we lift ourselves back. This little pyramid. Ground your right heel, blossom to 2. Pay attention to that left knee wanting to collapse in, running from the hamstring fatigue, and draw it back out. Right heel spins up. Crescent. And we'll drop the hands and return to the front of the mat. Make sure the glutes and core have an equivalent amount of engagement as you settle into your mountain here. Once you feel that weight distribution balance, we're going to once again sink back in a chair. Bring the torso down to the thighs and let the hands just fall here. Push back through your hamstrings. Inhale into half lift. And exhale all the way into fold. And as you settle back into this fold, pay attention to how the hamstrings are receiving, how much we changed the hamstrings from this entry. And then let's plant our hands and we'll walk our way back and into down dog. Come down to hands and knees tabletop, flip the tops of the feet, and sink back into child's pose. And so after a little bit of time on this island, the crew of the ship gets past their appreciation for being on land, and they start to explore the island. Pretty quickly they see, island's kind of going to have everything they need. There's a spring of fresh water. There's coconuts and lots of edible tropical fruits. And yet, there's also this, on the distant horizon, there's the other side of the island, and they just wonder, what could be over there? Could it be better? But it also is a very weird phenomenon. The island's horizon looks like it is forever away. Much bigger than what this piece of land looked like from the ship. And so they set out on an expedition to make it to the other side of the island. And they have to go through these dense jungle areas and mountains and cliff faces. And they're walking forever. When it's right, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From tabletop, make a determination whether you'd like to do this from full plank or half plank. Half plank's what we've been doing this before. We're going to go through that Chaturanga sequence. So we'll either step the knees back or we'll lift ourselves up into a full plank. And then we're going to lower ourselves down towards Chaturanga, get that little float at the bottom. And then from Chaturanga, push straight back into down dog. And so if you're doing that from your knees, you just plant or curl the toes and roll straight back. Get all the way into the height of that shape of the tailbone into your down dog. And then we'll shift back forward to plank. Lower yourself down to that Chaturanga. And then we're going to push back into child's pose. Come back into plank or half plank. Lower yourself to that Chaturanga. And we'll push back into down dog. Walk ourselves forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Settle all the way. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. We'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Bring our hands together, heart center. Sink to chair. Rise back to mountain. Left foot slides back to lunge. Ground the left heel, roll to 2. Slide back into that right hamstring. We're headed towards triangle. Hand coming down on the medial edge, big toe edge of that right foot. Bend your right knee and come back up into warrior 2. Bend that left heel up into crescent. Drop the hands to heart center and we'll step to the front of the mat. Sink the seat to chair. Nice vertical tibia and fibia. Rise back up. We'll slide our right foot straight back into lunge. Ground the right heel into warrior 2. Slide back into your left hamstring. Bring that left hand down to the medial edge, big toe edge of your left foot. For triangle on side 2. Dries your tears. No mountain too tall, no river too wide. With you by my side, we'll take the stride. Bend the front knee. Come back up into 2. Bend that right heel up into crescent. And drop the hands to heart center as we step to the front of the mat. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, we'll walk into down dog. Come down to hands and knees tabletop, flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Land and breathe here. When the silence grows and the crowds disperse, I'll be the voice in the universe, holding you close through the highs and lows. Together we'll stand when nobody knows. Give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees, tabletop. We'll either work from plank or from half plank. So either stepping the knees back or lifting straight to plank, whatever feels best for you. Let's lower ourselves down to Chaturanga, back to plank, to down dog. Take our right foot straight back and behind us. And we'll step the right foot forward into lunge. Take your right hand, bring that to the medial edge, big toe edge of the right foot, and then ground your left heel so that we're anchored there. The right hand's gonna take the pressure here, and we're gonna slide that right foot back to mirror our left. So you want that right hand to be anchored, and then we just slide that right foot back into a little side plank. The left hand does not need to raise up. If it feels comfortable for you, you can take that hand and lift it up. Left hand comes back down to the mat. Recenter yourself and rock back into down dog. Shift forward into plank. Lower yourself to Chaturanga. Press back up into plank. And send the seat back into down dog. Send your left foot straight back and behind you. And we'll step the left foot forward into lunge. Ground the right heel and bring the left hand to the medial edge, big toe edge of the left foot. For most of us, this is our non-dominant hand, right? So this challenge can be a little bit harder, but anchor into your left hand and slide your left foot back into your side plank. And then maybe we take that right hand and reach up. Eventually, right hand comes down. We rebalance on the mat. Lift our seat to down dog. And let's walk forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Let your head go. Let the spine get long. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. And let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into mountain. And for mountain, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Send the seat back into chair when you feel balanced. Sweep the arms behind you and let the torso come down and rest maybe an inch or so above the thighs. Sweep the arms out in front of you, really extending towards that front space. Drop the hands down on the mat, and we'll walk back into down dog. Come down to hands and knees, tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Let your body really land here. Let your breath normalize here. Take a moment to really settle in. Think about the respiration rate normalizing. The heart rate normalizing. And we'll give ourselves just 20 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees, tabletop. From tabletop, display your fingers out nice and wide. Feel the finger mound, fingerprints engage through that space. We're either going to our half plank or full plank. And from that engagement, we're going to lower ourselves down, Chaturanga, press ourselves back up into plank, lift our seat into down dog. And let's take our right foot and extend it straight back and behind us. And then we'll step that right foot forward into lunge. Sweep ourselves into crescent. Ground the left heel and roll to 2. And then slide back into your right hamstring. And we'll take our hands to our hips. And we're going to express triangle, but we're not going to worry about the arms. So this is very, very hamstring focused. It's going to tilt our way into triangle, right? If we took the arm down and we took the arm up, it's full shape. We're keeping the hands on the hips. Think about the length from the middle of the sacrum to the top of the crown of the head. Then we'll come right back up. Bend the front knee and blossom into 2. Make sure you're not collapsing in with that knee, that you're staying out wide. Left heel spins up, and we'll find crescent. Float the hands down to the mat. And we'll step the right foot back into 3-legged dog. And then drop that right foot for a traditional down dog. Shift forward to plank. Lower to a chaturanga. We'll press ourselves back up into plank. Lift the seat into down dog and send that left foot straight back and behind you. And then we'll step the left foot forward into lunge. Sweep to crescent. Breathe into crescent. Round the right heel and roll to 2. Slide back into your left hamstring. Hands come to the hips. Remember that this is triangle. We're just not using the arms. So we're tilting our way forward. Really thinking about engaging that front hamstring. Keeping the length from the sacrum to the crown of the head. And then we'll draw back up. Blossom, bending the front knee into 2. Right heel spins. We find crescent. Float the hands to the mat. And we'll send that left foot back into 3-legged dog. Drop to down dog. Shift to plank. Lower to chaturanga. Come all the way to your belly. Flex the quads. Flip the tops of the feet. Squeeze the elbows in. And go back to that baby cobra energy that we started class with. Note how it's changed. Note what's harder to activate. Feel that subscapular musculature turning on and pulling open, right? We retract the scapula back and we pull open this anterior shoulder girdle. You may be lifting the forehead. Maybe the sternum's peeling away. But we're thinking about this upper body, this upper torso expansion. Isn't necessarily where we generally are focused in Cobric energy. Hold this for 10 more seconds here. And we'll relax. Slide our hands underneath our forehead for a little crocodile pose. And just breathe here. Let the body relax. Think about how you can be at ease. We can continue to unwind any elevated respiration. We'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. Bring our hands back underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. And then from tabletop, we're going to extend our legs out in front of us into staff. From staff, let's bend our left knee. Let the left heel come in. Squeeze in towards the glutes. As you do that, get that big, long spinal expansion. Push the crown of the head up. Don't let your breath get short here. Super easy as you compress in to just go. Really think about long, full, fluid cycles of breath. And then we'll relax that left leg out. And we'll do the same thing to side two. So our right knee is going to bend, right heel in towards the glutes. We'll pull that in and flatten out, neutralize the spine, extend the crown of the head. Find the fluidity and the ease in our breath. Really stay focused on that ease in the breath. And when you feel balanced, left to right, no rush to make that true. When you do, we'll extend the right leg and we'll just follow that forward into fold. Little brief seated forward fold here. Or traditional seated forward fold. Last 30 seconds. And when it feels right, we'll walk ourselves back to staff. Bring the bottoms of the feet together so that we have a little butterfly. You can clasp here on the ankles or the shins, the knees, or the toe mounts. And we're going to just take ourselves forward into a little butterfly hold. Note here how the hips feel, how the lumbar feels, kind of what we've played with, how it's responding. And we'll give ourselves just another 40 seconds here. When it's right, we'll walk ourselves, press ourselves up towards seat, and then we are gonna lower straight onto our spines for a little bit of the magic of practice. Really think about how your body settles in here. And so as these sailors make their way out on this exploration through the jungles and over these cliffs, they keep feeling like they've gone way too far. And they keep getting into little arguments about who's navigating and if they're taking them in circles or what's going on. When it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees into a bent shape if they're not already. So kneecaps point towards the ceiling, and then we're going to start a little dynamic sway with the knees. And so as the arguments ensue, whether they're going in circles, they decide that the best way to ensure that they're not is to mark the trees, and they build little stacks of stones. At every 50 so feet, they mark a tree, they build a stack of stones. And after many hours of travel, sure enough, they come across a marked tree. And this, of course, starts a huge fight among the crew. And they just follow their marks back. Camp, or to where they landed. And they build a camp. The next day, they again set off with the same goal. They're going to make it to the other side of the island. And they go past the trees they've marked, and they have a new person who's utilizing the map and who's leading the direction. And they're continuing to mark new trees. And after hours and hours of travel, sure enough, they come back across a marked tree. The next time that your knees fall to the left, let's let them just settle and stay there. And this goes on for weeks. Heading out, getting into fights, not making it, and they cannot figure out what they're doing wrong. And now they've marked so many trees in this jungle, and they have so many rock stacks that who knows what's right and what's wrong. Almost like they've made it worse. And one of the sailors, the next morning, they're set to head off into the jungle. He says, no, I'm not going. And he starts just kind of collecting some little scrap woods, and he makes himself a little shaded hut. He cuts open a coconut, and he's just sipping on the coconut water. And they like rest of the group starts getting really mad at him. They say, you're lazy, you're not doing anything, you're not helping us. When we get off this, you're gonna pay the price for this. He says, what's the big deal? What are we doing? And they say, well, we're doing nothing if we sit here. We're getting nowhere, we're finding nothing. And he looks back at them and he says, walking into the jungle is getting us nowhere, leading us nowhere, getting us nothing other than sore feet. So I think if we're going to get nothing, I'll just do it right here. And that causes a big little scuffle, but the rest of the group heads out and he stays back at this camp. When you're right, let's bring our knees back to neutral. And then we'll exhale and let the knees fall over to the second side. I'll just settle here. And so while they're gone, trudging through the jungle, he starts building up this little camp. He starts kind of making a water system so that it's easier to get water from the spring. He starts building an expanded shaded area, harvesting more and more food. And sure enough, after hours and hours and hours have passed, the group comes back and they're grumpier than ever. And they don't really notice anything he's done. And the next day, kind of the same thing. They get in a little fight. The rest of them go off. He stays and he starts building up this camp. And as days go by, as weeks go by, this camp is becoming more and more robust. He starts planting seeds and the seeds start sprouting. He's dug out this little garden area for himself. And every day, the rest of this group, they go off into the jungle, they get lost, they get angry, and they come back. And every day when they get back, they discuss about how they've gotten no closer to the other side of this island. This horizon seems like it's a mirage. When you're right, when you're ready, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And as the knees come back to neutral, just ask yourself if there's anything that you might want, that you might need, that you could potentially benefit from prior to Shavasana? And if there is anything, if there's anything that you could do to improve your body before Shavasana, your practice before Shavasana, let's offer that to us now. And if you have everything you need, if you're ready for some stillness, let's just drift in to our version of Shavasana this evening. Just finding stillness, finding the ease in our breath, and the ease in our body. And so after a great many months had passed, this lone sailor has built this camp into this living, breathing homestead. None of the angry adventurers have really figured this out. We're all sitting under these palm umbrellas one night, and he's feeding them all this coconut based curry he's made from things he's harvested. And they're all dejected and sad. One of them says, the horizon of this island is a complete lie. Someone else says, there is no other side to this island. And the one sailor who's built everything up says, there's no other side to this island. This island isn't endless. Our search was endless. We were searching for a place that doesn't exist. All the while, we've been sitting in the very place that has everything we need, where we needed to be. We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. To our wrists and our ankles. Elbows and knees. Shoulders, hip, neck, head, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body moves, and we'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in back into a seat. And in this seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes close. And we'll inhale our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that without purpose, even an endless journey can lead nowhere. But with meaning and intention, a small circle can hold a lifetime of experiences. See how that impacts you. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday. Love the heck out of you. I will be back on Sunday to recharge. Have a beautiful week. I'll see you soon. Mwah.